In light of recent events, it's quite easy to think the NFL is, well, rigged.
Illegal shift, penalties decline. The Chiefs did recover and take over first down.
And the official, look at that.
Well, everything in moderation, but here's another shot of Taylor Swift.
They're scripted like it's the WWE.
Three Chief, a Chief Pete.
But let's be honest, we need something more concrete than...
Not again.
Look, you missed the tackle! It's rigged! I mean, it's rigged! My team should have won, it's rigged!
And yes, this is not going to be one of those videos, though some statistics are thought-provoking. That aside, my goal by the end of this video is to have a concrete yes or no answer of whether or not the NFL is truly rigged. Because this video, we are going to be taking a look at the historical sport organizations to truly understand of whether or not the NFL is rigged. Because if they were rigged, then the NFL is probably rigged. If they weren't, or it was sporadic, well, then the NFL probably isn't. So let's take a look. And ladies and gents, it gets crazy, so buckle up. Let's begin. Let's start off in ancient Rome. That was loud. Where the Colosseum dominated. Nope, wrong Colosseum. Ah, there we are. The Gladiatorial Games. These games kept the masses placated for the emperors of Rome. They were around in Rome's early days, but as time grew on and the Roman emperors came into power, so did the Gladiatorial Games. Let's just say the Roman emperors didn't exactly go hands off when it came to controlling the Gladiatorial Games. Because of this, many of the games were known to be decided before the event even started. Martial, in his epigrams, writes,
"What is the point of your mad rage, frantic crowd? Here, where there was once bloodshed, now there is mere play."
Here, Marshall is highlighting the fact that the games weren't actual gladiatorial matches to the death. They were just staged to placate the crowds. Marshall and other historians from the time highlight some other problems that were common with these games. Favoritism was a massive problem. Star gladiators, who were crowds' favorites, were often known for winning matches or being spared at the end of them because the people loved them and the emperor wanted to keep the people happy. They were especially favored if they generated a lot of revenue for the sponsors involved. Boy, that sounds familiar.
Everything in moderation, but here's another shot of Taylor Swift.
I'm sure that's not relevant. So the gladiatorial games were rigged. Okay, one example is far from a conclusion. Let's move to the Middle Ages, where the Roman Empire has now become the Byzantine Empire. And the Byzantine Empire is dominated by chariot racing. Chariot racing was so popular, in fact, that people wore the colors of their teams on the days that chariot races happened. Sounds familiar, actually. Just because it was super popular doesn't mean it was free from any rigging. There were massive faction rivalries between the blues and greens. There was sabotage. There was collusion and bribery. And let's not forget the betting scandals. Oh, there were plenty of those.
Procopius, in his Secret History, says this about the power of the chariot factions. "In the factions of the Romans, the blues and greens held more power than that of the emperor and his court, at times dictating terms of political and civil spheres." The power wasn't just one way. He also says this about the emperor's influence in the games. "For even in the games, the emperors were not permitted to be passive, but they themselves, through their power, intervene and force the factions into rivalry with each other."
Marshall highlights the fact that at times, chariot racing teams and factions control decisions of the government, and at times, the government controlled the decisions and things that happened in the chariot races. This is a very delicate balance, and as we're about to see, things can go very, very wrong. It was these chariot races that led to the Nika riots of 532. These are where the dedicated fans of the chariot racing teams rioted because they thought that it was all rigged. This led to half the city burning and 30,000 lives being claimed. Maybe it was just a Roman thing to rig massive sports organizations. So let's move to something a little closer to the NFL, a sport extremely popular in the 19th through 20th centuries. Horse racing. It was an extremely popular sport known as the sport of the kings, with events like the Epsom Derby in England becoming iconic. But unfortunately, a lot like chariot racing, mob and mafia rule sometimes decided how the events would play out. Let me put it this way. If you were at a horse race and you wanted to win some money from betting, this is what I suggest you do.
Hey, Luigi, how's the family? Hey, you know who Fat Tony's betting on?
Who, Fat Tony?
Oh, yeah, he's betting on Swifty down there. Yeah, well, why do you ask?
Forget about it. Forget about it. These mafia were not only powerful, but pretty creative in their ways of altering horses' performances. For example, they underfed them, they drugged them, and they went so far as to swap out horses when people weren't looking. Hey, wait a minute. That's not Swifty. And as time went on, it got worse because organized betting became even more common. And with that did the potential of fraud. Let's move away from this. Maybe we go to boxing. This is a sport where honor and fame was at a man's fingertips. But we're not referring to just any boxing. We're actually referring to bare knuckle boxing. A sport where two men were in the ring facing off for fame and glory. And nope, these matches were especially rigged because all you need to do is pay off one guy to take a fall when he wanted to, and voila, you have a rigged match that changes championships. Matches were frequently fixed, with entire tournaments having predetermined outcomes in some cases. Betting was extremely rampant, making it very enticing for shady promoters to rig outcomes the way they wanted them to go because they could make a lot of cha-ching. I like that cha-ching. You may have noticed betting is probably a pretty big giveaway at this point of whether something is rigged or not. And here's a quote from Boxana. A fighter of great renown was known for slipping a note into the hands of his opponent's second. And lo, what a surprise when the great champion fell to the ground with his first stiff blow. The crowd, desirous of sport, saw not the deceit, but those in the know whispered of a purse exchange in the night. Well, darn it, that's conclusive. What about a gentleman's sport? Let's look at cricket. It's way better regulated than early boxing, so probably it would. Nope, it actually says right here in the ICC statement that J.R. Wackram was charged with 3 counts of breaching the ICC anti-corruption code, including failing to report an approach and to engage in corrupt conduct. Nice. Cricket, too? That wasn't even that long ago. We're hitting walls here. What if we look at early football? No, I'm talking about the real football, the one that some people call soccer. Obviously, soccer in its early ages just started as small, simple village sports, but eventually turned into a massive organization. And in 1863, the Football Association was born. And there was also a lot of betting and rigging in that as well. One example is the Scottish footballer Jackie Sheldon, who played for Liverpool and was eventually revealed as a ringleader in his conspiracy. The players agreed that the game should be won by Manchester United to benefit their own interests. This event was known as the 1915 Good Friday Scandal. And just like that, the true football is rigged. After looking at all of these organizations, the major factors that lead to rigging are political involvement, betting, pressure from the wealthy, political influence, and most importantly, that organization having lots and lots of money. And this is the definition of the NFL. And before you say it, yes, the NFL is incredibly involved in politics as it gets almost $1 billion in U.S. subsidies every year. So there you have it. Your answer is yes, the NFL is definitely rigged. But wait, before you go tell everybody the NFL is all scripted, it is not either. As we've seen with all these other sports organizations, they were fair probably at least 50% of the time. And while having elements that were rigged that would change the results of everything else, there are certainly elements of it that are completely fair. And if history repeats itself, that's likely the case with the NFL. Some parts are rigged, some aren't. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on how rigged the NFL truly is. Official Caleb News. Subscribe if you think Swifty the horse is going to win her race. If you think she'll lose, forget about it. Forget about it.